Just a reminder, you can catch me recording this podcast live on AMP. AMP is a new live radio app that lets you call in and chat with me in person while recording. Get the app on Apple's App Store and make sure you follow me at Jon Middlekauff to get notified when I go live. What is going on, everybody? Jon Middlekauff Go Low podcast. You can find it on the 3 and Out feed with me, Jon Middlekauff. Make sure you subscribe wherever you may listen. If you're watching this on YouTube, we appreciate you. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the page. We got you covered every single sport, obviously including golf. Big merch sale right now. As you can see, Go Low hats. Right now, if you buy a polo on thevolume.com and use the promo code OPEN23, you get one of these bad boys half off. I got a lot of volume merch, including some Go Low hats. They look good. Get on it right now. Highly recommend it. Go to thevolume.com. Last major of the year. Bittersweet because we got football right around the corner, but at kind of the unofficial end of golf. We still have the playoffs and the Ryder Cup, but this is, this is what you play for. And you get 4 of these a year, and we have 3 champions, right? Wyndham Clark, Brooks Koepka, and Jon Rahm. And now Scottie Scheffler having one of the great seasons. Can he cap it off with a major? Rory McIlroy hasn't won a major, which feels like in a decade because it's basically been a decade. And then a lot of other names floating around. We will dive into it all. But first, download the Gametime app. Go to your smartphone, download the Gametime app, promo code GOLOW, GOLOW, to get $20 off any pair of tickets. Concerts, comedy shows, you name it, any games. You want to go to a golf event, you got one of these playoff events coming near you. You live in Italy, you want to go to the Ryder Cup, you want to go to a football game this fall, you want to go to a baseball game the rest of summer, I got you covered. Download Gametime, the official ticketing app of this podcast, and use the promo code GOLOW for $20 off. Can't recommend them enough. I use them religiously. Okay, last major of the year, which is awesome, but also kind of sucks. First and foremost, Rory kind of got over the hump. I thought he was in desperate need for, listen, the guy's won a ton, and he's going to continue to win. But to win like he did, and for those of us on the West Coast, we weren't going to get up in the middle of the night. So we were going to watch it on replay. And I had a bet on Tommy Fleetwood. I was hoping to wake up and Tommy Fleetwood was going to be the champion. I had him, I think, 22-1. I rolled over and I look, and The Athletic or whoever comes up on my phone just said Rory McIlroy holds off, or didn't upset him, but upset him in the sense that he was down. He had to make up 2 shots in 2 holes with the wind pumping. And I thought for the first time in a long time, we know how great the guy is. The guy makes a ton of money on the golf course. The guy is as long off the tee as anyone we've ever seen that can consistently hit fairways. He's a stud. I will defend him. Like, obviously he's a star, but he's worthy of that stardom. Now, it's tournaments like that happened last weekend when he birdies the last 2 holes into the wind, a 190-yard par 3 that was probably playing 230, 18, a par 4, which a birdie to win, it's 445, probably playing 490 because he goes driver, 2-iron, and hits one of the best shots of his career. And it's like, if that is the version of a guy who's dialed and free because of this merger, like, he can win any major. Because really, he could have won 2 of the last 4 majors, right? The U.S. Open was his to win. Couldn't make a putt. The Open last year at St. Andrews was his to win. He hit every fucking green. Didn't make a putt. And Cam Smith just went nuts. He can putt. And it's the difference right now between Rory having 6 majors. Instead, he has 4. And Cam Smith and Wyndham Clark each have 1 because he just couldn't quite seal the deal like he did on Sunday. Now, the Scottish Open is not a major, and McIntyre is not exactly Jon Rahm, Scottie Scheffler, Victor Hovland, or Brooks Koepka, but still, that was very impressive. And that's all we want out of our stars sometimes, is when their back's against the wall, can they get it done? Can they find a way? Can they overcome everyone else? Why? Because they're better. There's a reason Rory coming into this week is 6-7-1, because he's legitimately better than everyone else. So when he does something like that, it's spectacular to watch, but you go, yeah, it's Rory McIlroy. right? When Michael Jordan or Tiger Woods or Tom Brady, they do miraculous shit, or Steph Curry, it's not that crazy because they are those guys. And I think one thing that's been missing lately from Rory's resume is some of that, is not just getting out and front running, not being in positions and not getting it done. He's too good to not be the closer that we saw on Sunday. And it's why I couldn't blame anyone for hammering him this weekend. Obviously, the confidence, the game is there. Clearly, the shot making, if the weather gets a little weird, which it clearly can across the pond. I've never played in Scotland, in Ireland, in England. I've played in Bandon Dunes, and I freaking love links golf. It's not fun when the wind is blowing 40 or 50 miles an hour, but if the wind is 20, 25, it's just an awesome way to play. It's made for an artist. That's why I think of the guys that have won historically. Think of the best player over there over the last 10 years. It's been Spieth. It's not a robotic style of golf. You have to have all the shots. And that's, I think you can question sometimes with Rory, but what he showed last week, like, that was Tiger-like. And it's why Tiger dominated over there, right? It's Ricky, I would consider an artist, has had some success over there. Tommy Fleetwood, a great ball striker, can work the ball high and low, has a lot of success over there. Historically, a lot of, just those type guys. Shane Lowry's a guy that can keep the ball under the wind, won a major over there. So I love this major. It's just way different from everything we're used to. I wish golf would play more internationally. Now, I understand with the TV deals they have, NBC and CBS, it's not ideal when you're teeing off at 3 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time, right? It's why they like the LA and the West Coast majors, because it's prime time, or hell, just wherever, just somewhere in the States. It is difficult logistically, but I do think this weekend, and just like whenever they play over there, it brings into light the passion of the people. Golf was invented across the pond, how much these people care about the sport. Obviously, soccer is the number one sport in the world, but in certain of these countries, it's every bit as big. And just the uniqueness of the viewing experience, right? I don't personally like playing golf in freezing cold. I don't like playing golf in a jacket. If I have to put on a beanie and a jacket, it's like, yeah, I'll just stay in, right? I like it about, I don't mind the heat. I mean, it's currently 180 degrees in Scottsdale, a tad bit too hot to play golf. I haven't played in like a month. But if you tell me between 110 and 95, I can play golf all day long. And I think most people that like to play golf don't mind it in the heat. Freezing cold golf is very difficult, but it's also a unique test for these guys. And it's why we got, coming into this major, Scottie Scheffler, who, as Jason Sobel told me, has lost to 71 people this year. He is easily having the greatest non-Tiger Woods / major winning season of my lifetime. What he's doing is beyond remarkable. It's like you can look at the stats, they're eye-opening, but just every single week when the dust settles, he's T3, he's second, he's T4. I mean, he's just rattling off top fives. I think he has, 6 straight top fives? Has the lowest finish he's had this season is like T12 back in 2022 in the fall, kind of turnaround part of the season. So just a remarkable player. Now, he's only won twice. Speaking of a guy that's doubled his win total, Jon Rahm, little out of sight, out of mind. I think I'm going to bet on Jon Rahm this week strictly because of the odds. You can get him 12, 13 to 1, where the other two guys are basically betting 6.5, 7 to 1. And you got to bet a horse. When you think about the majors this year, think about starting with the Masters. Final group. Who was it? Koepka and Rahm. The PGA Championship. Who won? Brooks Koepka versus Victor Hovland. The U.S. Open. Wyndham won, but Rory right there, and Ricky, I wouldn't call a favorite, but he was definitely trending, and a guy I think at the time was like 40, 35 to 1 maybe for that U.S. Open. This week he's 25 to 1. Another guy I like a lot. The guys I'm going to ride this week, I'm going to pick Jon Rahm out of the 3. I might also put a little bit on Rory and Fleetwood and Ricky to top 5, top 10, and sprinkle a little bit to win. But I'm just going to ride big names. I'm going to ride horses, because when you look at this tournament, the last 2 times they played in this venue in the last 20 years, Tiger Woods won it and Rory McIlroy won it. Think about that. I mean, it's a lot of majors, a lot of wins between the two of those guys. So this is a Secretariat is going to win this bad boy this week. So I'm very excited. It's fun to gamble on. It's really the last real tournament you can gamble on, because once the playoffs start, they cut it down to 70 and then to 35, and it just becomes a lot more difficult. This is the last time, at least until we figure out how this is all going to play out with Live Golf, the Live guys together, get Koepka, get Cam Smith, get DJ, Patrick Reed, DeChambeau. As of right now, and potentially next year, because I listen to enough podcasts with the big J's. There's not a guarantee that Live is going to disappear next year. Maybe it handles one more year. So we might have 4 more of these where this is the only time we get everyone, the band, back together. So let's enjoy it. I'm excited. I personally am rooting for bad weather, crazy wind, some cold, some rain. I flipped on the Golf Channel today, and Todd Lewis was walking down the course with Ricky. They both had umbrellas. Wind was kind of coming in sideways. I don't want to play in it, but I do want to watch it. And I think we've had a really good major season with basically Tiger being MIA. I guess he played in the Masters, but he could barely move. And then the last 2 majors he hasn't played, and clearly this week he's not playing either. So the golf has somehow managed to be Tigerless and keep on, doing pretty well. I think their ratings at the U.S. Open were really high. Makes sense. Rory was right in the mix. And yeah, so let's enjoy this and take it for what it is. And last but not least, I had a buddy, Ethan Sherwood Strauss, who used to be a big-time writer at ESPN, then went to The Athletic and got a lot of admiration for the guy. He just kind of went on his own, runs a Substack. Just fantastic. If you like the NBA, if you like kind of media business, he just writes interesting shit. He does not hold back. He does not write like other big J's. He doesn't play scared. Really smart guy, went to Cal. And we just text over the years about different things. And he texted me on Sunday after Steph Curry won the Tahoe. They call it the ACC, the American Century Championship. And he forwarded me a Gronk tweet. Basically, like, Gronk was like, could this guy be a pro? And back in probably 2015 or 2016, I followed Steph. He played in a Korn Ferry event. I forget the course's name. It's a little hilly, linksy type course in a little south of the airport in the Bay Area. I could be off a little logistically. Maybe it's not quite south. Maybe it's east of the airport. But I had never played it. It's in Millbrae, California. And the Korn Ferry Tour is probably better now than it was back then, but it was still pretty good. I mean, most guys that ended up on the PGA Tour kind of came that way. And I watched Steph in very, very difficult conditions play with the defending champ of the event shoot 74. And there's a difference between just going to your local course, if you're like a 4 or 5 handicap, 3 handicap, 2 handicap, and shooting a 74, and playing in front of, I'm going to guess there were several thousand people following hole to hole. And conditions were very, very hard, and shoot 74. It was really impressive. I remember coming away, and I had been around at the time, I was probably 30 years old, been around golf for 20 strong years, thinking, this dude's really good at golf. That was a very, very impressive round. And then watching him at the match a couple weeks ago against Kelsey and Mahomes with Clay, who's terrible, he was bad. And I kind of chalked it up. He's got 3 kids now, busy schedule, probably doesn't get to practice as much, but that's as bad as I've ever seen him. And you could argue he was younger, less responsibility in terms of children when I watched him at the Korn Ferry Tour, but he was definitely better. And I watched the guy at the ACC. One, just let's put it in context. That's phenomenal to be an active athlete and win that thing. And he made a hole in one on Saturday. He won it with a walk-off eagle. Now, Tahoe, a little bit like Coors Field in baseball, ball flies. I mean, he had a par 5 on 18. He went driver sandwich. Maybe it was driver gap wedge, but it's not exactly driver 3 wood. So the course is very easy, and it was very impressive. Easy in terms of lengthwise for guys that can hit it far, and he's clearly one of those. But any of this talk that this guy could be a pro, and Steph, I think, would be the first to tell you this because he plays with pros, and he's definitely played with quote-unquote minor league guys, dudes on the Korn Ferry. He would have no chance to play on that tour, especially the version of Steph Curry now. I mean, the dude was chunking chips, no different than me or you. Guys that are low single-digit handicaps. Or if you're listening, you're a 15 handicap. You do that as well. But he is not. If I took a guy from the Korn Ferry Tour right now, either some young star or maybe an older guy, Spencer Levine, who won a Korn Ferry event, he would have won the Tahoe tournament with his fucking eyes closed and one hand. They would run circles around everyone, including Steph, Marty Fish, Tony Romo, Aaron Rodgers. The gap between, and I'm not trying to shit on Steph's accomplishment. That was incredible. It was fun to watch. He's fun when he's playing good golf. He's just a great showman, and the tournament is very, very lucky to have a guy like Steph who loves playing golf. Right? Elway's love playing golf. Gretzky's love playing golf. We've had guys over the years, and it kind of keeps cycling through. Mahomes is now into it. I watched Kelsey one time at TPC Scottsdale, practice for like 3 hours. So when watching the broadcast going, God, he's improved a lot. Well, yeah, he practices and tries really, really hard. So I saw it firsthand. The dude, I was screwing around for a couple hours, looked at him at the back of the range. He's just chipping and putting the whole time. But Steph's pretty good. Like, Steph can go to most courses if he's playing well and shoot between, I would say, 73 to 76. Like, from the tips. Like, he's a good player. But the gap between him and the Korn Ferry Tour in 2023 is a mile wide. And the gap between him and fringe tour players / like guys holding on to their tour card for dear life is insanely big. And I think he's not pushing this on anyone. Other people are talking about it, but he'd be the first to tell you that. The gap is really, and it's widened because I think he plays less golf as he's gotten older, just because you got kids, you got a life. You play deep into the playoffs all the time. He's not able to just go out to the golf course 5 days a week. Now he's still going. And my theory was, after the match, which for his standards was pretty embarrassing, really was, because at different times Mahomes and Kelsey were out playing him. On a given day, Steph Curry with one arm could beat both those guys, giving them 5 shots aside. Like, he is much better than them. I think he was pretty embarrassed. And I know he's worked with Butch before. They were talking about it. I would imagine he got a lesson. I would imagine he grinded, and he came ready to play. And he won that bad boy. And it was awesome to watch the walk-off eagle. But any talk by some of these athletes that don't know golf that well, or just people like Strauss, he's like, can you put this into context for me? Is he that close? I'm like, no, he's not very close. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just no different than the guy that's really good at pickup basketball is nowhere near good enough to play in the fucking G League. Like, the guy, working out really hard playing like men's league rugby. He ain't close to the NFL. He ain't Vince Papale. So nothing but props. I think it's awesome for a game that I love, that Steph likes it so much, brings a lot of positive light. He's done a lot of good for the game. His passion shows through when you watch him in these tournaments. He talks about it nonstop. So it's very, very cool. And I'm all for it. But the talk about him being a pro, no fault of his own, he's not saying that. But people, we got to pump the brakes, because you give me the worst guy on the Korn Ferry, tour, they would go to that tournament and they would kick everyone's ass easily.